Hi everyone, my name is Lázaro J. Bumatano and I am your reporter for today for our subject Life's Works of Rizal. And my report is all about the chapter 5 entitled Medical Studies at the University of Santo Tomas on 1877 to 1882. Introduction. Fortunately, Rizal's tragic first romance with its better disillusionment did not adversely affect his studies in the University of Santo Tomas. After finishing the first year of a course in philosophy and letters on 1877 to 1878, he transferred to the medical course. During the years of his medical studies in the university, which was administered by the Dominicans, rival educators of the Jesuits, he remained loyal to the Ateneo, where he continued to participate in extracurricular activities and where he completed the vocation course in surveying. As a Tomasian, he won more literary laurels, had other romances with pretty girls, and fight against Spanish students who insult the brown Filipino student. And now, let's start with the mother's opposition to higher education. After graduating with the highest honor from the Ateneo, Rizal had to go to the University of Santo Tomas for higher studies. The Bachelor of Arts course during Spanish time was equivalent only to the high school and junior college courses today. It merely qualified its graduates to enter a university. Both Don Francisco and Pasiano wanted Jose to pursue higher learning in the university. But Doña Tudora, who knew what happened to Gumborza, vigorously opposed the idea and told her husband, "Don't send him to Manila again. He knows enough. If he gets to know more, the Spaniards will cut off his head." Don Francisco kept quiet and told Pasiano to accompany to his younger brother to Manila. Despite their mother's tears, Jose himself was surprised why his mother, who was a woman of education and culture, should object his desire for a university education. Next is Rizal enters the university. In April 1877, Rizal, who was then nearly at 16 years old, matriculated in the University of Santo Tomas, taking the course on philosophy and letters. He enrolled in this course for two reasons. First, his father liked it, and secondly, he was still uncertain as to what career to pursue. He had written to Father Pablo Ramon Recto of the Ateneo, who had been good to him during his student days in that college, asking for advice on the choice of career. But Father Recto was then in the Mindanao, so that he was unable to advise Rizal. Consequently, during the first year term on 1877 to 1878 in the University of Santo Tomas, Rizal studied cosmology, metaphysics, and theodicy and history of philosophy. It was during the following term, on 1878 to 1879, in the University of Santo Tomas. He received the Ateneo rector's advice to study medicine, took up the medical course, enrolling simultaneously in the preparatory medical course, and then regular first-year medical course. Another reason why he chose medicine for a career was to be able to cure his mother's growing blindness. Next is finishes surveying course in Ateneo on 1878. During his first school term in the University of Santo Tomas on 1877 to 1878, Rizal also studied in the Ateneo. He took the vocational course leading to the title of Perito Agrimensor, or expert surveyor. In those days, it should be remembered, the colleges for boys in Manila offered vocational courses in agriculture, commerce, mechanics, and surveying. Next is romances with other girls. Notwithstanding his academic studies in the University of Santo Tomas and extracurricular activities in Ateneo, Rizal had ample time for love. He was a romantic dreamer who liked to sip the nectar of love. His sad experience with his first love had made him wiser in the ways of romance. Shortly after losing Segunda Katigbak, he paid court to a young woman in Calamba. In his student memoirs, he called her simply Miss L, describing her as a fair with seductive and attractive eyes. Hence, her identity is losing history. However, he gives two reasons for his change of hearts, namely, first is the sweet memory of Segunda was still fresh in the heart. Secondly, his father did not like the family of Miss N. Several months later, during his sophomore years at the University of Santo Tomas, He boarded the house of Doña Concha Leiva in Intramuros. The next door neighbors of Doña Concha were Capitan Juan and Capitana Sanday Valenzuela from Pasanjan, Laguna, who had a charming daughter named Leonor. Courted Leonor Valenzuela, who was a tall girl with a regal bearings. He sent her love notes written in visible ink. This ink consisted of common table salt and water. It left no trace of the paper. Rizal, who knew his chemistry taught, or rang the pet name of Leonor Valenzuela, the secret of reading any notes written in the invisible ink by hitting it over in the candle or lamps so that the words will appear. But as with Sigonda, he stopped short of proposing marriage to Urang. Rizal's next romance was with another Leonor Rivera, his cousin from Camilling. In 1879, at the start of his junior year at the university, he lived in Casa Tomasina at number 16 Calle Santo, Tomas, Intramuros. His landlord, Uncle Antonio Rivera, had a pretty daughter, Leonor, a student at La Concordia College, where Soledad, or Rizal's youngest sister, was then studying. Leonor, born in Camilling, Tarlac on April 11, 1867, was a frail, pretty girl, tender as budding flowers with kindly, wistful eyes. Between Jose and Leonor sprang a beautiful romance. They became engaged. In her letters to Rizal, Leonor signed her name as Time Miss in order to camouflage their intimate relationship from their parents and friends. Victim of Spanish officers' brutality. When Rizal was a freshman medical student at the University of Santo Tomas, he experienced his first taste of Spanish brutality. One dark night in Calamba, during the summer vacation in 1878, he was walking at the street. He dimly perceived the figure of a man while passing him. Not knowing the person due to the darkness, he did not salute, nor say a courteous good evening. The vague figure turned out to be a lieutenant of Guardia Civil. With a snarl, he turned upon Rizal, wiped out his sword and brutally slashed the latter on the back. When he recovered, Rizal reported the incident to General Primo de Rivera. But nothing came out of his complaint because he was an Indio and the abusive lieutenant was Spaniard. Next is the Filipino Youth on 1879. In these years of 1879, Liceo Artistico Literario or Artistic Literary Lyceum of Manila, a society of literary men and artists, held a literary contest. It offered a prize for best poem by a native or a mestizo. Rizal, who was then 18 years old, submitted the poem entitled A la Juventud Filipina, or To the Filipino Youth. The Board of Justice composed the Spaniards was impressed by Rizal. The poem it gave first prize, which contains a silver pen, feather shaped, and decorated with a gold ribbon. This winning poem of Rizal is a classic in Philippine literature for two reasons. First, it was the first great poem in Spanish written by a Filipino, whose merit was recognized by Spanish literary authorities. And secondly, it expressed for the first time the nationalistic concept that the Filipinos, and not the foreigners, were the fair hope of the fatherland. And now, let's move on to the Council of the Gods on 1880. The following year, on 1880, the Artistic Literary Lyceum opened another literary contest to commemorate the fourth centennial of the death of Cervantes, Spain's glorified man of letters and famous author of Don Quixote. This time, the contest was open to both Filipino and Spaniards. Many writers participate in the contest: priests, newspapermen, scholars, and professors. Results inspired by his poetical triumph the previous year entered the literary joys, submitting an allegorical drama entitled El Consejo de los Dioses, or The Council of the Gods. It was an Indio. Despite of all objections, the prize was awarded to Rizal, a gold ring on which was engraved the bust of Cervantes. A Spanish writer did that, and that D'Alfonso won the second prize for the first time in history and in Indio, a 19-year-old Filipino medical student at that time, excelled a national literary contest, defeating several Spanish writers of his time in Manila. Rizal was particularly happy for he proved the falsity of alleged Spanish superiority over the Filipinos and reveals that the Filipino could hold his own in fair competition against all races. The winning allegory of Rizal was literary masterpiece. And now let's move on. Another literature works. Aside from the two prize-winning works mentioned above, Rizal, although studying medicine, produced other poems and zarzuela. This zarzuela was Junto al Pasig, or the behind the Pasig, which was staged by Athenians on December 8, 1880, on the occasion of annual celebration of the feast day of Immaculate Conception, patroness of the Ateneo. He wrote it as president of Academic Spanish Literature in the Ateneo. In the same year, on 1880, he wrote a sonnet entitled A Filipinas for the album of the Society of Sculptors. In this sonnet, he urged all Filipino artists to glorify the Philippines. The year before, in 1879, he composed a poem entitled Abadair Aziz I Mahuma, which was declaimed by an Athenian, Manuel Fernandez, on the night on December 8, 1879, honored the Ateneo's patroness. Later in 1881, he composed a poem entitled Al MRP Pablo Ramon. He wrote this poem as an expression of affection to Father Pablo Ramon, the Ateneo rector who had been so kind and helpful to him. And next is Rizal's visit to Fakil and Pasanjan. In the summer month on May 1881, when he was still a medical student in the University of Santo Tomas, Rizal went to pilgrimage to town of Pakil, famous shrine of Virgen Maria de los Dolores. He was accompanied by his sisters, Saturnina, Maria, and Trinidad, and their female friends. They took a casco, or the flat-bottomed sailing vessels, from the Calambag to Pakil, Laguna, and stay at the home of Mrs. and Mr. Manuel Rigaldo, whose son Nicolas was Rizal Prince in Manila. In Pakil, Rizal was infatuated by a pretty girl called Lihiala Vicenta Ibardaloza, who was skillful played the harp at the Rigaldo home. From Pakil, Rizal and his party made a side trip to neighboring town of Pasanjan for 2 reasons. It was the native town of Leonor Valenzuela, one of the Rizal's girlfriend in Manila, and to see the world-famed Pasanjan Falls. Years later, Rizal mentioned the Turumba in chapter 6 of Nole Me Tangere, and Pasanjan Falls is his travels diary, United States, Saturday, on May 12, 1888, where he said that Niagara Falls was the greatest cascades I ever saw, but not so beautiful nor fine as the falls of Los Baños, Pansanjan. And next is Champion of Filipino Student. Rizal was a champion of the Filipino students in their frequent fights against arrogant Spanish students, who were often surpassed by the Filipino in class works and insulting called their brown classmate Indio Chungo. In retaliation, the Filipino student called them Castilla Bangus. Hostility between these two groups of students often explode in angry street rumbles. Rizal participated in these students' brawls, owing his skills in fencing, his prowess in wrestling, and his indomitable courage. He distinguished himself in these student skirmishes. In 1880, he founded a secret society of Filipino students in University of Santo Tomas called Compañerismo, or Comradeship, whose members were called Companions of Hijo. After the valiant Hebrew general who fought the Arameans and ruled the kingdom of Israel for 28 years, 843 to 816 BC. He was the chef of the secret student society. with his cousin from Batangas, Galicano Apacibol. As a secretary, as chef, he led the Filipino student into combat against the Spanish student in various street fights. And next is Unhappy Days at the UST. Rizal's Ateneo's boy Wonder found the atmosphere at the University of Santo Tomas suffocating to his sensitive spirit. He was unhappy at this Dominican institution for higher learning because, first, the Dominican professors were hostile to him. Secondly, the Filipino students were racially discriminated against by the Spaniards. And the last one is the method of destruction was obsolete and repressive. In his novel, El Filibusterismo, he described how the Filipino students were humiliated and insulted by their Dominican professors and how backward the method of instruction was, especially in the teaching of natural science. He related in chapter 13, the class in physics, that his science subject was taught without laboratory experiments, the microscope, and other laboratory apparatus were kept inside the showcases to be seen by visitors, but the student could not even touch them. Because of the unfriendly attitude of his professor, Rizal, the most brilliant graduate of Ateneo, failed to win high scholastic honors, although his grades in the first year of school philosophy course were excellent. They were not impressive in the 4-year course of his medical course. He has a scholastic record in the University of Santo Tomas on 1879 to 1882. And the last topic of chapter 5 is the decision to study abroad. After finishing the 4th year of his medical course, Rizal decided to study in Spain. He could no longer endure the rampant bigotry, discrimination, and hostility in the University of Santo Tomas. His older brother readily approved his going to Spain, and so did his two sisters Saturnina or Nining and Lucia, Uncle Antonio Rivera, and the Valenzuela family and some friends. For the first time, Rizal did not seek his parents' permission and blessings to go abroad because he knew that they, especially his mother, would disapprove it. He did not bring his beloved Leonor into his confidence either. He had enough more sense to know that Leonor, being a woman, young and romantic at that, could not keep a secret. Thus, Rizal's parents, Leonor, and the Spanish authorities knew nothing of his decision to go abroad in order to finish his medical studies in Spain, where the professors were more liberal than those of the University of Santo Tomas.